Just an update on the historic settlement for compensation for systemic discrimination against children in the child welfare system. As you know, the final settlement agreement that was negotiated with all of the parties was indeed historic, recognized in fact by the CHRT for the collaboration and the work that went into it amongst all the parties. We'll be continuing to work with the parties to compensate children that were removed and harmed, but also today filed a judicial review to have the court look at some of the aspects of the settlement agreement that were not accepted by the CHRT. The clarity that the review will provide will give us an indication on how to move forward in those areas. We believe that there is good willingness amongst the parties to continue to work together and to find a pathway not just on this piece, on the compensation of the children that all parties agree need compensation urgently, but also in this area where there is where the tribunal has indicated that they believe the agreement doesn't meet their findings. I will also say that this is a historic agreement in that it is an agreement that represents huge sums of money, indeed $40 billion, $20 billion for compensation, but not only that, it is an agreement that has been led by Indigenous people and designed by Indigenous people. And so we'll continue, as I said, to work with the parties. Our first priority is to ensure compensation can unfold quickly for those that the court agrees, the agreement, the tribunal agrees the agreement covers well, and we will ask the federal court to review the remainder of the decision.
Bien, Francisque, pour résumer ce que la ministre Hajdu vient de déclarer, on confirme aujourd'hui qu'on porte en appel le jugement du tribunal des droits de la personne sur le jugement historique quant à la compensation pour les enfants des Premières Nations qui ont été pris en service de garde. Nous continuerons en même temps, à la même fois, de compenser les enfants, les éléments du jugement avec lesquels nous ne sommes pas en désaccord et en conséquence, on travaillera évidemment avec les parties pour s'assurer que la compensation puisse être faite, même en face d'un appel, là où nous avons des désaccords sur des éléments du tribunal que nous trouvons ne sont pas à la hauteur du règlement que nous avons eu avec l'Assemblée des Premières Nations, entre autres. On parle d'un règlement, encore une fois, historique dans la somme, mais surtout dans la façon dont elle a été négociée. Il reste quand même des éléments de désaccord et ce sera à la Cour de trancher.
Why not just pay the $40,000 each?
Well, I think the answer to that question is, although the question sounds simple, is actually quite complex. What we have said is that for a range of children that were taken into care and discriminated against for a period of about 30 years, from 1991 to 2022, we will be paying compensation in historic amounts, even over and above, again, what the CHRT has ordered. And those, in this case, we're talking about children who have suffered the most egregious harm. And that is something that we are very concerned about getting out in a timely fashion. So we'll have to work with the parties to make sure that's done in the fashion that the agreement provided for. At the same time, we do have some disagreements over some elements of the judgment, and for that reason, we are filing an appeal. I would note as well that the CHRT has not issued the final and full reasons of that judgment, so that's an additional element in today's decision.
What are you hoping to see from the review?
Well, in fact, I think the filing of the judicial review today is a reflection, first of all, of a timeline that is imposed. Today is the last day for Canada to be able to do that. My colleague did mention that the full decision document from the CHRT is not here. But I think principally, you know, again, this agreement was negotiated with Indigenous partners, and indeed the compensation regime planned by Indigenous partners. And so the question that we have, obviously, as the federal government, and I know our partner, the AFN, has, is why a negotiated agreement like that is satisfactory to the parties at the table would not be acceptable by the tribunal. And so that's one of the questions. And I think, you know, as we move forward, as I said, on negotiating, I shouldn't even say negotiating, on unfolding the compensation for the children harmed, the children removed from care and placed in Indigenous Services Canada placements. We are always open to looking with partners at how we satisfy those other categories of individuals. But I think it's important to note that the AFN, Chief Woodhouse, and the federal government are both seeking clarity on this tribunal ruling from the federal court.
What about putting more money on the table? Because that would probably solve this.
First of all, look, this is a historic sum. There is $20 billion that is dedicated and available to compensate children that have been harmed and their families. And I think the parties at the table understood that this was indeed a historic sum and felt that there was a lot of room within that amount of money to do compensation properly. I think more than money, there is also a question about Indigenous-led solutions. You know, there is this agreement. I think what I think about the agreement is that every step of the way we worked with Indigenous partners to make sure that the compensation regime would be done in a way that First Nations people felt was fair, that was not re-traumatizing, that was First Nations led, and that drew from lessons learned on other compensation regimes that, although undoubtedly provided compensation, in some cases provided a great deal of distress as well, created a great deal of distress. So I think that you know, I am pleased that the parties want to continue the work on now moving forward quickly on compensation for the agreed class of children, and I'm also looking forward to the court's review of the remaining aspects of the agreement.
So what you're saying is that there's no new money on the table at all. There's no new money. You won't be. That's not an option here.
What I'm saying is right now, money is not the reason why there is a request for the judicial review.
And how long will children have to wait?
Well, that question I can't answer exactly because this is a collaborative process with the other parties. But I can tell you that now that the parties and the federal government agree on this class of children that were removed, those that have been the most harmed, we can hopefully quickly move to having a process of compensation that will help get money out quickly.
And do you have a message for Dr. Cindy Blackstock? Because the AFN wants to get on with this. They seem to be on your side. But it's the sticking point seems to be with Dr. Blackstock. Do you have a message for her and what impact she's causing?
Well, I think, first of all, Canada owes a debt of gratitude, actually, to Dr. Blackstock. She's worked incredibly hard and spent most of her professional career fighting for Indigenous children and for equity. And so my message to anybody in this space is that this federal government wants to be a good partner to Indigenous people, including on the important work that she's doing on the reforming the system side of the compensation, or of the $40 billion agreement. $20 billion, don't forget, goes towards a reform of a system that has been systemically discriminatory, and her expertise and her knowledge and her research is going to be very helpful and is very helpful in that. So look, I think we're going to get there, and I think we're going to get to a place where people feel satisfied both on the compensation side and on the reform side. But this is complex work, and I think, you know, all parties are doing their absolute best to make sure that kids are well served now and that people are compensated for extraordinary harm.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.